Is there any question the United States government has a responsibility for its civilian population? That's literally the purpose of a government, or say Israel's government. But being a genocidal, Jew-hating terrorist means you don't have to take responsibility for the civilians you supposedly govern. You might not have any responsibility for those citizens at all. Members of the West, people at the UN. Hamas has no responsibility, which is why Hamas's friends are able to lament the plight of civilians in Gaza after having funded their impoverishment and the current conflict created by Hamas. Aid dollars deployed to Gaza over the past 20 years have been embezzled by Hamas and used for its murderous plans. But now the international community and legacy media say it's up to Israel to make humanitarian provision for Gaza's civilians. This is, of course, disingenuous. 0 of the countries that voted in favor of a UN resolution pushing a ceasefire have offered to take in any Gazan civilians. None have called for Hamas to surrender to Israel so far, which would end the conflict immediately. No, they say Israel has to stop its attempts to destroy Hamas. The innocents are suffering. This is the height of cynicism, this argument. It's on par with the old saw about the man who kills his parents and then throws himself on the mercy of the court because he's an orphan. Hamas started this conflict. Hamas is the governing body in the Gaza Strip. Hamas has chief responsibility for the health and welfare of Gazan, Palestinian, Arab civilians. And they do not care at all about those citizens. In fact, they want those citizens to die. They say so openly. They say that their civilians are the responsibility of the people they just murdered en masse. Here is Hamas official Musa Abu Marzouk just yesterday. He says many people are asking, this is the interviewer, since you have built 500 kilometers of tunnels, why haven't you built bomb shelters where civilians can hide during bombardments? And he says, we have built the tunnels because we have no other way of protecting ourselves from being targeted and killed. Those tunnels are meant to protect us from the airplanes. We are fighting from inside the tunnels. Everybody knows that 75% of the people in the Gaza Strip are refugees. And it is the responsibility of the United Nations to protect them. According to the Geneva Conventions, it is the responsibility of the occupation to provide them with all the services as long as they are under occupation. So you get that. By the way, the Gazan government is Hamas. They literally elected them. They provide public services. But according to this, it is amazing to hear members of an actual, honest-to-God, genocidal terrorist group citing the Geneva Conventions in their own defense. Truly amazing. But here's the math, apparently. If a population elects a terrorist leadership, that terrorist leadership consolidates its control by wiping out its political rivals, that terrorist leadership steals billions of dollars in aid and impoverishes its own citizens in the process, and then the terrorist leadership murders 1,500 Jews and kidnaps another 233 people, then so long as the terrorist leadership hides in tunnels underneath civilian populations, the terrorists have to be left alone. This is insanity, total insanity. It is insanity no other country on earth would be expected to weather or be concerned about. Not the United States, not the UK, not France, not Germany, no one. There cannot and should not be a ceasefire until Hamas surrenders. This is very simple. Anyone in the world calling for a ceasefire, but not calling on Hamas to surrender? In fact, those who are calling for a lengthening of the conflict by shipping in more resources for Hamas to steal cannot pretend to care about human life, either Israeli or Palestinian. There's a reason that both Hamas and the United Nations, again, one of the worst places on earth, are calling for a ceasefire. It has nothing to do with human rights and everything to do with stopping Israel from protecting its own citizens, the mass murder of whom created this conflict in the first place.